Let's go now to Democratic Congressman Adam Smith of Washington, top Democrat on the Armed Services Committee. And I'm really so happy to have you here in person, Congressman. So Putin being generous, what does that even mean, do you think?
Well, look, let's understand one thing. There's not a lot of questions about what Trump is trying to do. He's basically trying to give Ukraine to Putin. And he wants a better relationship with Russia, and he's willing to sacrifice Ukraine for the sake of that. And whatever he may have tweeted about, putting pressure on Putin, everything else he has done. And people have to understand, he is crippling Ukraine. This isn't just a matter now of sending more weapons. By cutting off intel sharing, by cutting off their ability to identify airstrikes coming in, he is putting Ukraine in an incredibly vulnerable position, and he's empowering Putin. The whole point of this, Trump says, is I want to get a peace deal. But you have to put pressure on Putin to get a peace deal. He's taking all the pressure off of Putin and giving him a massive green light to continue attacking Ukraine.
Right, and you talk about all the cards, right? Who's dealing the cards, right? Who's the dealer? What do you think happened earlier when the post was made, though, about more sanctions? I mean, I saw it, and my sort of jaw went on the floor. So I said, wait, now you're going to say this after everything else. I mean, soon he was back to his more consistent behavior.
There is a rational argument for saying we need to get to a peace settlement in Ukraine.
Yes.
And Ukraine's got to be willing to come and be willing to negotiate that. There's a rational argument for that. And a lot of Republicans who claim to support Ukraine, even though their silence is deafening right now as Donald Trump decimates Ukraine, would argue we're just trying to get him to the peace table, all right? And if that was in fact what they were trying to do, then putting sanctions on Russia while continuing to arm Ukraine would be key to forcing Russia to the bargaining table. So that brief little tweet is consistent with the more rational position, but it's meaningless because he didn't follow through on it. And I really want to emphasize the Republicans in Congress. There are Republicans in Congress who claim to support Ukraine more strongly than anybody. They are sitting silently by while Trump betrays Ukraine and hands it to Putin.
So can I ask you, because I've heard all sorts of arguments about this minerals deal, okay? And the argument, the most convincing one is, okay, put a minerals deal on the table, and that will mean there's Americans in Ukraine, so we don't have to give Ukraine security guarantees because Putin won't want to kill Americans involved with the mines. The Trump argument, okay. But I want to understand the point of the minerals deal. For minerals that we don't know how much there is, what they really are, the ones that are known are in mined, Russian-controlled parts of the country, and security guarantees don't come. What's the point of it?
There is no point to the minerals deal. It's sort of like Trump saying he's going to invade and take the Panama Canal. It's just, well, I'd like to have that. In terms of how it gets us to a peaceful resolution in Ukraine, it's not going to have anything to do with it for all the reasons you just stated. The real story here is that Trump continues to show Putin nothing but weakness. Now, it's possible that Trump is that incompetent, but I tend to agree with Thomas Friedman, who said this morning that no, Trump is more sympathetic with a brutal, repressive autocrat like Vladimir Putin than he is with Ukraine. And by the way, I say that, you can say, well, gosh, we can't keep pouring money into it. How long is this war going to go? You can want to get an end to the war short of Ukraine's maximalist goals. And I can find that very reasonable.
Yeah.
But if you wanted that, you would want a sovereign democratic Ukraine with security guarantees to protect itself. You would want to keep arming Ukraine to put pressure on Putin to force him to the table, and that's not what Trump is doing.
And so Trump has called Zelensky a dictator. He's mocked him, right? They said, oh, I don't remember saying that. All the things that he said. Lindsey Graham, ally of Trump, has called for new leadership. So now it's interesting, the opposition to Zelensky, Tymoshenko, Poroshenko, they have said they don't even want elections right now. So it's not as if Zelensky is going against the opposition.
It's like there's a war going on.
Exactly.
Right.
Polls shows that his approval ratings have surged in Ukraine since what happened with Trump. But I'm curious because you have seen the insidious power of just constantly belittling or cutting somebody down, the power that can have. Are you worried about that for Zelensky now?
Well,
and because he is so crucial to this, to Ukraine and to the war.
I'm not really worried about that Zelensky. As you said, all that's doing is strengthening him at home. What's really to be worried about is just undercutting Ukraine and walking away from Ukraine. Now, maybe Trump's doing it because he's got a personal beef with Zelensky because back in 2019, Zelensky didn't dig up dirt on Biden for him and it led to that whole thing. I still stand by the other answer, again, giving credit where credit is due to Thomas Friedman, that Trump kind of likes Putin. He wants a better relationship with Putin. And, to quote Tucker Carlson, what's he got against Putin? I think Tucker's exact quote was, Putin never called me a racist. He seems fine. All right. So I think he's more sympathetic there.
That was, I think, in the line where he also said Putin doesn't eat dogs, and that would be the standard for liking somebody.
Right. So, and this is incredibly serious. I mean, it's shocking, it's distressing, but by walking away from Ukraine, Putin is not just in a position to take Ukraine. He's in a position to threaten the rest of Eastern Europe. And here's another scary thought. What Putin really wants is he wants us to pull back from the Baltics and pull back from Poland and pull NATO out so that they can be forced into a more neutral stance as well.
Well, that, of course, is already happening, as we see. We'll see if it continues, but it certainly is. All right. Well, Congressman, thank you very much. I appreciate the conversation, despite what we talked about.